Hey guys, it's Diego here with another episode of Hell's Microphone. Now today I figured we'd talk about, well, I didn't really want to talk today. Instead, I'd rather read you guys a story. It being Halloween and all, why not us read a creepypasta? Now, creepypastas are short little internet stories meant to creep and scare you out. Now, a lot of people have done this before, and I'm not doing anything different, but, it being Halloween and all, why not? So, today I'm going to be reading a story about clowns. Now, with the clown scare and all that, I figure why not read it. So this story is called Sarah's Coulrophobia. I'll leave you guys a link in the description if you want to read it. But without further ado, let's just get right into this, alright? So this is Sarah's Coulrophobia by Kyriakos Vilchis. Nice name. Ever since Sarah was a little girl, she was terrified of clowns. Fortunately for her, a lot of people harbored that same fear. The idea of a person being goofy and happy all the time, dressed up in a silly costume, made a lot of folks uneasy. So she wasn't alone in that discomfort category. Growing up, she rarely had to encounter one of those overly enthusiastic men or women in face paint and crazy colorful hair. But when she did, it was bad. So bad, in fact, that she eventually had to go to therapy through much of middle and high school because of the nightmares induced by the fear of clowns. As Sarah got older and progressed through therapy sections, her fear began to dissipate. She wouldn't shut her eyes every time she saw a clown smiling at her from her television screen, or in browsing the internet and accidentally seeing a picture of Pennywise from Stephen King's It. She learned to control her fear so that it wouldn't control her. Her first year of college was perfect because of her newfound ability to stem the cry of the jester-created demons she had within. It would not be long, however, because she would find that great fear can and would return, and in the most sinister way possible. It was mid-March, and Sarah was as busy as ever, juggling the workload of a typical in-the-trenches college student. It was a Tuesday, and Sarah had just gotten out of her last class of the day, an important psychology lecture by a guest speaker that had lasted for about 2 hours. As she was making her way back to her on-campus apartment, a young man, apparently in a rush, collided with her, causing them both to fall on the ground. Sarah landed on her back, her bag flying off her shoulder. Angry at the man's idiocy, Sarah slowly sat up to ask him how in the world could he be so unaware of his surroundings, but was shocked to find the man was nowhere to be found. Scanning the immediate area, there was no sign of him. Shaking her head, she got to her feet. Picking up her bag, she noticed a flyer face down on the ground. That Neanderthal must have dropped it during his hit and run, she thought. Sarah picked it up and turned it over and gasped. It was promoting a special night called Night of the Clowns. Posted underneath in the middle of the promo was a picture of a big creepy clown with dark blue hair and a big orange smile plastered on his white face. Below his picture there was a short description about the event. Hey, are you ready for laughs a minute? Goofballs that could even make your grouchy grandma grin? Then no further, guys and gals, because Night of the Clowns is in town. Prepare for a night of food, fun, and games hosted by us kooky clowns, and absolutely free! Come alone or bring the entire family. All are welcome! Right under the description, there were directions, and the starting time of the event. Confused, Sarah read the information again. She read that it be located at the MacArthur Fairgrounds, but she knew that the fairgrounds had been closed for a good 2 months ago due to county warning to develop the land for housing and business. There would never be any kind of festival or carnival like that ever again. Shaking her head, she continued to read that it said it would begin at 8 p.m. that night, and that it will last until early the next morning. Why would anyone want to spend the entire night with some crazy clowns? Sarah couldn't understand. She looked at the clown on the flyer again, his eyes staring back at her. She studied the flyer, trying to remember if by chance she had ever heard of an event called Night of the Clowns. Nothing came to mind. It was just too weird. She shook her head and tossed the flyer in the garbage. No thanks, she thought. No clowns for me. It was about 7:50 in the evening. Sarah was on the couch in her living room watching television and having some Chinese takeout for dinner. Her roommate Dawn was out with her boyfriend, so Sarah knew she'd be alone for a while. As she sat there, Sarah figured she could give her boyfriend Jesse a call to see if he wasn't busy so he could come over. But then she remembered why he wasn't over her place by now anyways. He would be at work until midnight. Defeated by the realization that she'd be home alone for a while, she sighed and ate a forkful of chow mein, flipping through the channels. She passed over shows like Dirty Jobs and Criminal Minds. Crap, it's a freaking promo video. Not finding anything she wanted to watch until she began to see Man of Steel on HBO. As she began watching the movie, she noticed the picture of her TV had become fuzzy. Suddenly, the screen went from showing Superman fighting General Zod in Metropolis to a disturbing face of a sad clown in dark makeup. It was juxtaposed across the entire screen, and it made Sarah jump in her seat. The clown just stared at her and motioned for her to come closer. Sarah fumbled for the remote to shut it off to the TV. She shook her head. Damn clowns. For the life of her, she didn't know how in the hell it had went from Superman to a freaky clown, but she didn't care. Enough TV for tonight. She looked at her phone and saw that it was 8 p.m. She jumped when her cell phone suddenly rang. She looked at the number and didn't recognize who the caller was. Sarah answered the phone. "Hello?" she said. After a few moments of silence, a voice that sounded like Disney's Goofy responded, "We're waiting on you, Sarah. We're starting the fun and we need you here." Sarah tried to pinpoint anything silly about the voice that might seem familiar and laughed. "Okay, who is this? Jesse, cut it out." The person chuckled. No, not Jesse." Sarah, still smiling, shook her head. "Okay, well, whoever this is, I'm gonna go now." Before Sarah could hang up, however, the voice laughed hysterically, and then suddenly her television came back on. As Sarah watched in horror, that same creepy clown was looking at her, the creepy sad clown. This time, standing next to a man in a chair, with his hands tied behind his back. The clown held a knife at the man's throat. As Sarah slowly recognized who the man was, she uttered a cry and cupped her mouth with her hand. "I wouldn't hang up just yet, Sarah, or poor little Jessie will have to go away." Sarah looked at her phone, terrified and shaking all over. Who are you? Who the hell is this?" Her eyes glued to the television. She couldn't hear the man on the phone anymore, who let out a throaty guffaw. "I'm just a clown, Sarah. You're not afraid of clowns anymore, right?" Tears began to fall down her cheeks as she looked at Jessie's terrified expression. She choked back her tears. No, I'm not. Please, just let him go." The man sighed deeply. "Of course. But you have to come here first. Come to Night of the Clowns. We're waiting, Sarah. We're waiting." The man hung up and the television went dark. Sarah sat there in shock. Her phone still pressed firmly against her ear. She slowly lowered the phone and thought about calling the police. As she dialed 911, she realized something. That this guy wasn't a guy messing around with her TV and some average Joe kidnapper. This was paranormal. Something outside of the realm of logic clearly. She understood what had to be done in order to save her boyfriend. She had to go to Night of the Clowns. Sarah drove as fast as she could to the MacArthur Fairgrounds outside the city. The closer she drove to the large area surrounding the playground, a thick, heavy fog had enveloped her car. Before she knew it, she had arrived at the large closed iron gate of the fairground entrance. She was shocked to see a grand marquee accompanied by a bubbly clown face greet her from above, bright strobe lights in different colors lighting up the night sky. She looked past the rusty bars of the iron gate and could see booths and rides of all kinds. There was loud carnival music booming to the air and the distinct sound of children laughter. What she didn't see, however, were people. Anywhere. It was the entire place, almost like it was run by ghosts. Sarah slowly got out of her car, and almost immediately the gate began to creak open. She cautiously approached the gate, looking around nervously. Suddenly, a group of clowns appeared before her, laughing and encouraging her to come inside. They wore an assortment of costumes, wearing different kinds of wigs and hats. They were male and female clowns, all flashing her painted, creepy grins. Sarah approached them, sweating with fear. "Okay, I'm here. Where is he?" One clown, wearing a top hat, carrying a funny-looking cane, looked at the rest of the clown posse and giggled. He looked at Sarah and placed his hand on her shoulder. "We'll take you right to him, my dear. Then we can all have a splendid time." The clown wrapped an arm around her neck playfully, and all the other clowns giggled, scared to say or do anything. Sarah allowed the clowns to lead her to Jessie. As she passed ride after ride, booth after booth, she noticed that more and more clowns surrounded her. She also noticed their faces became more disturbing, their forms more monster-like as they moved deeper into the twisted carnival. She saw that clowns were impossibly tall and slender reach out to her, smiling at her with the stained yellow teeth. She saw a clown hunched over like some type of animal, hissing at her, a tongue like a lizard's flicking in and out between her crimson lips. One clown she passed was wearing a crude, fleshy mask over his face covered in blood. His red eyes seemed to shine like eerie orbs of light. The group of clowns escorting her finally arrived at the large polka dot tent. The clown in the top hat spun Sarah on his shoulder so that she could face him. Sarah trembled as she looked into his evil, manic eyes. Where is he? The clown tilted his head, motioning to a large tent. Right in there, my dear. Go inside and we'll get started. He let go of her shoulders and Sarah slowly walked into the tent. She was greeted by bright lights and great applause. She held a hand over her eyes, almost blinded by the light. She blinked several times and saw that there were hundreds of clowns sitting in bleachers surrounding her, all watching her with glee written over their painted faces. In front of her she saw Jessie, still tied up to the chair with that creepy sad clown wielding the blade dangerously close to his neck. Sarah cried out in anger and ran towards Jessie and the clown. She was mere steps away when the clown pressed the blade harder against Jessie's throat. Sarah looked at her boyfriend and realized that he had passed out. She looked at the menacing clown holding him hostage, fury in her eyes. Let him go! She screamed. The clown just looked at her with his dark frown. Then at Jessie. He shook his head sadly and without a warning slit Jessie's throat wide open. Blood sprayed everywhere as Jessie convulsed in the chair, a sickening gurgle coming from his throat as he stared at Sarah with terrifying eyes. Sarah, without thinking, ran up to the clown, punched him in the face. The clown fell backwards, the knife flying from his gloved hand. The clown watched as Sarah cradled Jessie in her arms, tears streaming down her cheeks. Sarah felt Jessie go limp in her arms, as blood ran down her chest. She heaved as she held his head, crying uncontrollably. He didn't deserve this, and she felt the inevitable wave of guilt come over her. This is all my fault, she thought. A disturbing cackle to her right caused her to snap her head up, and she could see the sad-faced clown was slowly getting up, smiling at her. Gently laying Jessie's head down, Sarah quickly got up and picked up the knife. Before he could utter a word, she pounced on him, tackling him to the ground. With a mentality of a deranged animal stricken with grief, she stabbed the sad clown in the chest over and over and over. The clown cried out in protest, telling her to stop, but it was of to no avail. Sarah stabbed him as hard as he could, laughing as he choked up blood and his eyes rolled to the back of his head. Even after the clown's eyes closed, his death apparent, Sarah kept stabbing him. After a few minutes, she finally stopped and stood up, her shirt stained with his blood now. She looked at the crowd. They were silent, unmoving, waiting for her next move. Crying, she threw the knife to the ground. Are you happy now? Look at what you've done to me! She screamed. The clowns just continued to watch her in silence. Finally, the clown with the top hat and the funny cane entered the tent. His eyes widened when he saw the sad clown lying in a pool of blood. Sorry, guys, I'm having a lot of errors right now. It's really late. I just want to keep reading, though. It's getting really interesting. He looked at Sarah and smiled. Raising his arms in the air, he faced a crowd of clowns. Wackos and jokers, jesters and loons. She has done it. Our Sarah has done it. Finally conquered her fear of us. The clown audience erupted into laughter and applause, jumping up and down their seats. They threw flowers and streamers and sprayed silly string into the air. The clown approached Sarah, his grin getting wider as he got closer. She stared at him with the utmost hate in her eyes. Please just let me leave, please, she cried. The clown shook his head and motioned to the crowd. Leave? Why, my dear, you are never going to leave. But Sarah looked at him, shaking her head in confusion. But why? What have I done to you? The clown laughed and wrapped his arm around her shoulders once more, pointing to the crowd. Nothing, Sarah. You've done nothing to any of us. This isn't some kind of revenge thing. No. It's something far greater. A test. Sarah, tears in her eyes, looked at him. A test? He nodded. Yes, a test. You passed with flying colors. We have to see if you're ready to join us. Sarah looked at him, a chill running down her spine, making her legs feel like spaghetti noodles. Join you? He nodded and laughed. Once more. Yes, join us. We seek out those who fear us and help them understand we aren't that bad. Once they finally understand, they become a part of our big, crazy family forever. Sarah, horrified, tried to run away, but the clown held her tightly. She screamed, Please, let me go. I've lost my boyfriend. Isn't that enough for you? The clown shook his head. He was just part of our test. He's important. What's important is the fact that you passed. Now you're one of us. Here, take a look. The clown pulled a large red mirror from the back of his striped trousers and handed it to Sarah. She turned it over and saw her reflection. She screamed at the top of her lungs. The skin on her face was a ghostly white with dark diamonds around her eyes. Both the cheeks painted with black circles. Her lips, now a shade of ebony, formed into a wide grin. She tried to rub the paint, scratching and pulling her skin to get the morbid face makeup off her face. And then she realized it wasn't paint at all, but the skin itself. Trembling, she saw another transformation while looking at the reflection. Her eyes changed color, turning from a medium brown to a mosaic of green and red. She felt a discomfort in her mouth and felt around her tongue. She opened her mouth, screaming once more. Her teeth had become canine-like, protruding under her dark lips. Shaking, she almost collapsed in the clown's arms. He giggled and held her. She looked at him. What have you done to me? She asked weakly. He gave her a remorseful look and motioned to the crowd. Nothing, dear Sarah. We've just made you part of the family. The clown audience erupted into fits of laughter once more as Sarah watched them. She studied their faces for the longest time before looking up at the clown holding her. They were demented but happy, she thought. Happy! The sound of their laughter soon became soothing, comforting in a strange way, like a relaxing tune you listen to before you drift off to sleep. Slowly a smile came to her face as she giggled, then began to laugh hysterically. Nothing else could be heard besides the sound of clown's laughter floating up out of the tent and into the cold, dark night. Alright guys, I know I read that pretty fast and I stuttered at some points, but I just wanted to read that for you all, and I really hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I actually really liked that one. It wasn't really scary, but it was actually very interesting, the whole clown thing. I do enjoy good clown stories. It's nice and creepy and it's got the whole clown thing to it. I do enjoy those. But if you guys have any suggestions of what else I should do, leave it in the comments down below. Maybe I could do another one of these readings, perhaps something else. Maybe I could do it a lot better. But anyways, hope you all enjoy it. And make sure to like and subscribe. And be on the lookout for more episodes of Hell's Microphone, guys. And hope you all have a nice Halloween. This is Diego, officially signing off for the night. Goodbye, guys.